Welcome back to another episode of the Flying G Huddle, your inside look into Gladwin football. I'm Casey Campbell. I am your host, and we are pleased to be joined by each and every week by Gladwin head football coach Mark Jarsfer. How are you?
Doing good this week. How are you, Casey?
I'm doing well. So after two tough losses, going on the road and getting a big win against Standish Sterling. Before we get into the plays, how much did you need that?
Yeah, that was a big win. We talked to our guys, that all week that we felt like we were so close in the prior two games. Obviously, we know that close doesn't get it done, but we needed a win to kind of right the ship, and we just felt that we're still a really good football team, even though we were at 2-2 going into this week. And this was another opportunity against a really good Standish team that was 3-1 with their only loss coming against undefeated Ithaca team by 8 points. And so we thought it was another opportunity to kind of right that ship and maybe get on a little bit of a roll here. But we have to take it one game at a time, and we were able to take care of business on Friday.
Yeah. All right, let's go through the game as we always do. Standish did get on the board in the first quarter and made it 6-0, and then Trace goes in scores the first touchdown to make it to tie it up with the extra point missed, and then he scores again from a Colton pass to make it 13-6. Preston then took it in to make it 20-6, and then Isaac Wheeler took it in to make it 26-6, and then obviously on the 2-point conversion fail. But yeah, strong second quarter for you guys.
Yeah, again, we must just be a second quarter team. I mean, you think back to the Ainsworth week when we scored 44 points in the second quarter, and then to get 26 in this second quarter was a big deal. It was kind of a weird first quarter. It just felt like we kind of came out flat and didn't have a lot of energy, and we made a ton of mistakes, and we're kind of hampered by a lot of penalties and different things like that. But our guys just kept fighting, and once we got on the board and got some momentum going, it kind of rolled quickly to where we scored with that first Trace Corlew run from 19 out, and defense got another stop right away, and then we were able to hit them with the big pass play for a touchdown, and then another defensive quick stop. And then, Preston took it in 7 yards out, like you said, and then we kicked it off to him one more time, and they got it into second and short. I think Jackson McKinnon ended up with a big tackle for a loss or sack or something like that that allowed us to take a timeout. And then they had an incomplete pass, so then we had 2 timeouts and like a minute and a half left in the half. And so to be able to kind of close out that half, with another strike to Isaac Wheeler from 46 out and turn that into a 26-point quarter was a big deal for us as far as kind of how the game started with being sluggish, and then really ending the first half on an extreme high note was a good thing for us.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the third quarter now. Standish did get on the board to make it 26-13. And then Preston Wheeler took it, ran for 17 yards to make it 33-13. Standish did get on the board one more time, 33-20, but that's all in the third quarter. Fourth quarter went scoreless, and that would be enough as you guys took the game 33-20, ending the 2-game losing streak. So overall takeaways from that game.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't always pretty in that game, but it's not always going to be when you're going against a good team and a very proud football program and community, and it was their homecoming, and so it was a great environment, a great night. Weather was excellent, and so when it's two good football teams going at it, that they're going to give us some difficulties at times, and our focus this week was on just doing the little things right and all the time, and making the most of our opportunities when they counted, because in the past 2 weeks we felt we were just a play or two away and those could have happened really at any given point in the game. We had multiple opportunities, but we just didn't convert on them. And so the point of emphasis this week was we need to convert on those critical opportunities and like crucial points of the game when we have them. And we did a good job of that, and we knew that they were going to continue to fight back and make a game of it for sure. But just proud of our guys' effort, and we got the win and went 1-0 in that week, and now we're on to next week.
Yeah, and then we'll obviously talk about next week at the end of the show, but there's some things you have to do before then. We have to talk about the MVPs of the week. Time to award those.
Yeah, there was a lot of good options on offense just because we had so many guys end up with the ball in their hand and it was kind of spread out, and so I think that makes it fitting to award it to the guy that kind of pulls the trigger on all those things, and that's Colton Finnegar. He has an extremely tough job in our offense of pre-snap reads, post-snap reads, and the offense really just runs through him, and so there's times where it can look very good, and there's times where if he's not on, it can look pretty bad. And so but knowing that and knowing the type of person that he is and the leader that he is, it looks good more times than not. And so this game he did an excellent job of distributing the ball around. You look at the receiving stuff. Trace Corlew had 5 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown. Isaac Wheeler had 2 for 76 and a touchdown. Cruz Balsarac had 2 for 16. Preston Willard had 2 catches for 6. Bronson Bigham 1 for 6. And so, when you have 5 different receivers, getting the ball in their hand and Colton just doing a good job of spreading it around and making things happen, that's a big deal. And then, at the end of the day, he was our second leading rusher as well with 7 carries for 44 yards. And so overall, he had a really nice day in a very, very, very difficult position to play on our offense. And so, as he continues to develop and grow, our offense becomes a little more dynamic by the week. And so he's our offensive MVP. Defensive MVP would be Harvey Grove. He really had a nice game on Friday night. He ended up with 12 tackles and a tackle for a loss or a sack. I don't remember which one it ended up being ruled as. But he's just such a physical, big, athletic kid that sometimes it's hard to remember that he's only a sophomore. And so he has an incredibly high ceiling, and he's constantly learning. And it's one of those things where we're pretty fortunate to have him for 2 more years, and he's going to continue to do a really nice job for us. Special teams would have to go to Trace Corlew again this week. He, as far as kick returns go, he averaged, I want to say 56 yards a kick return. And that's not including about a 90-yard kick return that he ran all the way back that got called back due to holding. And so he just has an unbelievable vision for the field, and he can see, blocks and running lanes and stuff like that and set them up. And then obviously he has, the shiftiness and speed and strength in order to kind of carry the load there. And so when you're averaging 56 yards a kick return, you're set up with some pretty good field position. And we're really fortunate to have him deep back there and teams still kicking to him. So, he would be our special teams MVP.
Yeah. All right, let's get the time for the JV team update. How'd they do this week?
Yeah, so they had a home game against a good Standish Sterling team and came out victorious. And so like we often talk about on here, their main goal is developing guys and getting them ready for varsity and trying to pick up a few wins along the way. And so they seem to be doing a great job of both of those, because when you look at that team too, the crazy thing is that we have 6 underclassmen moved up off from that team onto the varsity team. And so, there are lots of guys that, getting playing time and having opportunities that wouldn't otherwise be getting near as much of that opportunity to grow and develop and learn and live game action if those other guys were down. And so the fact that they are getting that opportunity and still being successful is, a big tribute to them and our coaching staff at that level, and putting them in a position to succeed. And when we get these groups back together and they've all had a ton of experience and been successful at different levels, it's going to be a good thing. And so that's kind of how we build our program and how we look at it, and so far so good, especially with them getting off to a 4-1 start. That's a great thing for us.
All right. Let's how'd the middle school programs do this week?
Yeah, so our 7th grade team moved to 3-0, which is awesome, with a win over Claire. And then our 8th grade played, tough into the second half of that game, and ultimately fell a little bit short. And so, those two teams split the games against Claire this week. Going 1-1, but very similar to the JV team, that just continues to be a developmental program, and getting those guys to learn our offense and defense, and make improvements along the way. And so for an example, I think last year if I heard this right, our 8th grade team lost to Claire by about 50. And this year, running a new offense and defense, and having all new names for stuff, and new coaches and that kind of stuff, which is a extremely tough thing to do. They were able to go in there and have that thing tied at halftime, I believe, and then ultimately, lose a 10-point game. And so they're making strides and improvements, and staying mentally in it and working. And so really good things are going on at that level as well.
All right. Now it's time to talk about a staff member for this week.
Yeah, so that ends up being a nice segue right into that. So instead of doing the staff member, I was going to do just an entire coaching staff for the junior high level, because some of the things that we've been able to see out of that group that are really, really important, and that most of them are not even on the field things, are in our junior high, with it being a school affiliated sport now. They're held to a strict attendance policy, and our attendance from athletes has gone up significantly to school this year. We've had less discipline issues in our junior high from our football athletes. Overall, they've had better grades. Because now that they're being held to the same eligibility requirements as the high school, and so all of these things are a really big deal, because in the past, without it being a school affiliated thing, a lot of these attendance and grades and discipline type ramifications would kind of sneak up and catch some of the guys that maybe didn't understand those things by surprise when they got into high school. And so just being able to get the kids on track and take care of those off the field issues at a younger age group is going to benefit them when they get to high school, and really provide them to be successful. And those coaches are doing a really good job, kind of headed by Jeff Demery. He's kind of like our overall junior high head coach, and works a lot with me, and he works in the building over there at the junior high. And so that's awesome to have him in the classroom, and seeing these kids in the halls every day and making sure they're doing the right things. Phil Willert calls the defense for both of those teams, 7th and 8th, because all of these coaches co-coach both of these games. They're double headers, and so they work with all these kids in practice. Corey Pullman working with our offense and defensive lines as a volunteer, which has been great. He spends a lot of time learning and trying his best to get these guys to put together good offense and defensive lines, and again, using our systems and the same wording things that we use, and all of that. And it's just going to be such a great benefit to these kids and to our program as they continue to develop and get to the high school level. And then Ryan Grice and Grant Fritz are kind of the other two guys that have been around as volunteers as well. And when you have 50 kids or 45 kids or whatever it is out there, and two paid coaches, volunteers make the difference. And so, Corey, Ryan, and Grant really deserve a lot of credit for, the sacrifices that they make in their everyday life and with their families and stuff like that to come out and help these kids develop and kind of feed into our high school program.
All right. Well, now it's time to take a look and see where we're at this week. Of course, a new week. And Shepherd comes to town week 6, and it is going to be probably the it's homecoming, but it's also the last game at home this year. As you finish off the last 3 weeks of the season on the road. What's that going to be like heading into the final home game of the year?
Yeah, I mean, homecoming's obviously always a special occasion, and that's not unique to just Gladwin, but it's awesome to see all of the former players and people come back and some of them wearing their jerseys and varsity jackets, from long time ago, and so the environment's always going to be great, and it'll be special, obviously, for our seniors with this likely being their last home game. I think there's a scenario, even if we were to win out, it's and be 7-2, it's not guaranteed that we'd get another home game with kind of the way that our district may be shaping up. And so, it's something that we'll talk to our guys about and make sure that they're kind of, taking that in and taking a little bit of time to enjoy that moment, just because, football has been a big part of these guys' lives for a long time now. And they've put in a lot of time and sacrifice, and Brockoff Field is a special place to play with the fans, lining the field and being right up close and tight. And we've had, some tremendous games and experiences there over the last, 5-6 years that these guys have all been a part of it. And so that'll certainly make that game that much more special. But as far as, Shepherd coming into town, they're an extremely young team with a new head coach, and they're trying to get a statement win to kind of turn that thing around. And so we know that they're going to be scrappy. They are going to use this kind of as a litmus test and see if how they're measuring up and that kind of stuff. And if you don't take them serious, you can give them some serious momentum and kind of a signature win on their schedule to turn that program around. And so, our focus this week has to be on the little details and continuing to improve and do the things that we need to do to keep us moving forward on our goals. And just knowing that we're playing a team that's extremely hungry for a win is always scary in its own right, because once they get a little bit of momentum going and you let them kind of hang around, anything can happen, right? And so our point of emphasis is going to be kind of taking care of business on our end and doing the things that we need to do to be successful, and not taking any plays off or not taking anything for granted, and doing our best to move to a second straight win.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Flying G Huddle. Tune in next week where we'll talk about this game against Shepherd, and we'll preview the upcoming game against Midland Bullock Creek. All right, that's going to do it. We'll talk to you next week.